Well, we're back. The Detox is back. As you can see, we've assembled the crew, and I'm probably on a naughty step now. We're in some sort of corner time. No doubt, Doug will have something to say. Hiya, Doug.
Yeah, well, I thought I was sacked.
Yeah,
So
you are
this
now.
this
Right,
this was
bye.
this was a very pleasant surprise. So thank you.
Yeah, well, no, it's. I mean, it's a good crew. It's just it was my timing. It was the Friday lunchtime slot. I found very difficult. You get up and yeah. But anyway,
No,
good to see you
we're
all.
like the next generation crew. We've gone from weekly viewing to movie length episodes.
Yeah, I like it.
Wait,
I like it.
you've always got to be right. I'm going to put you prime time, lads. We're going to go prime time. So
Yeah,
we're going to be bigger.
I
because
like
so
it.
this is a promotion. No, you know that it's when you get that dodgy slot at 1 in the morning. We're dying. And of course, Drain was only on the other day, trying to do as many no comments as possible about Shooty. That was
Yeah,
fun.
I noticed.
Did I? I thought I
You did.
commented quite a lot, but
You
yeah,
did.
with my
You
fair
did.
share of no comments though.
I
You
was
were
just enjoying.
restrained. You
I was
you were
just
very
enjoying
restrained.
watching your face. So anyway, we've assembled as the crew. Oh God, we've lost somebody there. I better sort that one out now. Well, that's a good start, isn't it, Brendan?
It was meant to be
Very.
Doug. Come on, man.
There you
The plan
go.
went wrong, didn't it?
So yeah, you're going prime time, but Dan, I forgot to tell you, you're not. Anyway, so we're here to discuss: would Doctor Who be safe in Pete Mctighe'S hands? It seems relevant with the spin-off coming. That'll be the last product done before a possible series 3 when they decide who the new showrunner is. You know why I'm thinking this. He's written Praxis, he's written Kablam, he's written Lucky Day, he's written some of the Blu-ray collection scripts. He's Pete Mctighe. And so he also was on, lads, and I know some of you endured it. He went on the Hooniverse show of recent note, and there it is. And with the crew celebrating 62 years of Doctor Who, um, Pete Mctighe came on to talk, obviously, about the spin-off, the war between the land and the sea. So I thought it was apt to get us all back because we've all got opinions on this sort of thing. And actually, Sirens of Audio, you've actually had him as a guest, haven't you, Joanne?
Yeah, we did. He was a surprise guest, very late notice on the day. We found that he was coming to the event and was willing to do an interview. So we spoke to him about that. It was probably a month or two before Lucky Day came out. So he wasn't able to say much about it, but apart from, I mean, I think the trailer was out and a few little bits and pieces. But yeah, he was a nice guy. He came across as a very nice fella.
Yeah. I think he's got an Aussie fella. I think there's a link to Australia as well, isn't there? Because I think he's got an Aussie fella. Because he
Yeah, he
seems
grew
to.
up. He grew up out here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adelaide, actually.
Oh,
Oh, really?
okay.
Lots of good people come from Adelaide, don't they?
They absolutely do.
Yeah, we're still looking. We will find them. But
So he's like Brendan. He's kind of Aussie too.
Kind
oh
of.
yeah, I'm Aussie sometimes. I'd love to come back. I was seeing what they've done to Brisbane. Oh my God, I'd love to be back in Brisbane. So
Yeah, he hasn't quite mastered the Aussie accent like Brendan has.
yes, I'm
No.
authentic. I'm authentic. Remember when Captain Cook crashed into those Sydney rocks?
Captain
Um,
Cook.
yeah, he talked like me because he came from my area. The classic,
That's
and that's
true.
why
That's true.
that's why the Aborigines were so confused and going, "What the hell is he talking about?" So yes, so I'm going to start with because we're going to have to judge this. I need your opinion, lads. So Pete Mctighe in the program talks about the things that influenced him. So if we're judging whether he'd be a good showrunner or not, he said, for example, if you look at My Kablam, you can probably see if you've seen the Robots of Death, which is a Tom Baker story, you can probably see the influence of that in that. So in other words, if his template is stuff like Robots of Death, and later on he mentions Enlightenment, why he wanted the TARDIS with the confrontation in Lucky Day to be orange. Is this making you feel better, lads?
Women, only shut the fool up.
I mean, Dan, if he says robots of death and enlightenment, is he sounding like a showrunner who knows his stuff and is in touch with the right aspects of Doctor Who for you?
Look, I actually like Kablam, and I think there was some interesting points there, but I think, I mean, it's always dangerous to go after things like Robots of Death because it is such a classic to fans. So even the design of the robot, I always had flashbacks to the robots
Bus
from
conductor.
the bus conductor. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought at the time. Um, Look, it was probably one of the better ones in that era. So, but yeah, I wouldn't put it as a classic, but I thought it was a competent story. A couple of twists at the end around the values that I thought were a bit weird. But
What do we want from the future showrunner, Doug? What do we want? I mean, and does Pete McTighe sound as though he fits the bill?
I'm a bit on the fence about Pete McTighe. He's actually had a hand in some quite good shows in Australia. I think he wrote or was one of the writers for quite a good little sci-fi show called Glitch. And I think he wrote an episode or two for a really good kids show called Nowhere Boys. So he does have talent. So I'm not anti
Did he
him.
really do
but,
Glitch?
I'm pretty sure he did Glitch. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he had a
I
hand in
love
Glitch.
that show.
Glitch was fantastic. Yeah.
Did he do Wentworth though as well?
Yes, he did. He did. And Neighbours, apparently. So don't hold that against him.
Well, it gets cancelled, then it's on again. Then it gets cancelled, then it's on again. Yeah.
As far as Kablam goes, out of that season, I throw my mind back to then, and I was still hoping for something to happen in that season by the time Kablam came, and I was pretty disappointed by the end of that season. I was still, rooting for Jodie, for something to go right for the second season, and still hoping something would happen. But that Kablam actually was my favourite episode of that particular season. If I had to pick one, I enjoyed that one the most. I enjoyed, like, Jodie's character actually had some character, which was refreshing. She was kind of channeling, like we've already mentioned, Greatest Show in the Galaxy with the bus conductor, and it did seem very similar to Sylvester McCoy vibe there, which was refreshing because she was only doing David Tennant vibe besides that. So I enjoyed it for that. So I don't really see it's been ages since I've seen it. So I guess if I went back and looked at it, I could look for the connections to the Robots of Death and see them. But yeah, based on Kablam, I would say if I hadn't seen or read anything else of Pete McTighe's, then yeah, Kablam was a good example of Doctor Who from that season.
Yeah, I mean, I see the imagery of the blue eyes of the workers at the mock Amazon factory, but apart from that, I don't
even the postman that jumps into the TARDIS is very Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Like there's lots of little things. It's definitely an episode that you watch it and there's a familiarity to it.
Well, lads, and Dan, you bring up a good point again, because there's another reference. Now, if a showrunner, a future potential showrunner, is showing, touches of Robots of Death, touches of Greatest Show in the Galaxy, touches of Enlightenment, is it ticking boxes for you, or does this just sound like a super fan who's just going to do fan service, and isn't going to bring new ideas? Because my concern is when you say that, Dan, you think, well, hold on a minute. Have you got a new idea? And a few things I'm going to say today are going to keep repeating that in different case studies, because I do actually wonder. And talking to my media insider source, I was just checking before we started. What he said was, he likes Pete McTighe. That's not why you get the job as a showrunner, by the way, is it? That you liked. But he said he doesn't rate him regarding Doctor Who stories, and he doesn't think he'll do it dark enough, and he doesn't think... So basically, nice man, but no. So that's where we're at here. Because when I show you some of these interviews, you think, hold on a minute. As in, I will do that. So I'll go bigger for everybody's eyesight. But here we go on this on this
Thank
one.
you.
He says what excites him about Doctor Who. So of course I'm saying, do we give him the job? He said this is a whole new level for them because the Doctor's not around, and that's actually what's really exciting about writing this show. Now he's talking about Lucky Day and all the rest of it. What was really exciting about Lucky Day is I love writing the Doctor, right? Okay, right. Obviously, the Doctor's the star of the show, but it's also really exciting when he's not around because then everything else is so much more dangerous. Everyone's in so much more danger, and for units, particularly this time, the Doctor's not around. The Doctor is not in the show, and so they have a massive worldwide crisis. This is the war between. And what do they do? How do they cope? And in Lucky Day, you saw Kate pushed to some extremes at the end of the episode. That she kind of dealt with Conrad, and that was really exciting for me to kind of lean into that dangerous, unpredictable side of Kate. So when I was doing the last few kind of polishes on the script to shoot Lucky Day, by the time I'd already started to write this, blah 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 blah. I mean, does he sound as though he likes writing TV? Or does he sound as though he likes writing Doctor Who? Because do you give him the gig or not, Dwayne?
Certainly, by what's written there, he's more of a fan than a writer. But he has done some competent writing in other shows that he's been involved with before. Wentworth was huge. I don't know if it was huge in the UK, but it was. I think it was, wasn't it? Huge everywhere. So he had a bit to do with that. So he does have writing chops. It's just, yeah, what he's saying there. I don't know. Was was the was everything more dangerous, or everything just much better when the shooty doctor wasn't there?
Leave the girl. It's the man I want.
You know my argument, lads. It's always well, yeah. There's that, but it seems to me RTD and Pete Mctighe and others are saying we love to play with the Doctor Who brand when we get the Doctor out of the way and we do what we want, and I don't want another showrunner going down that road. The Doctor needs to be prime position. The Doctor needs to be recognisably Doctor. And when I hear them going, it's so much fun when the Doctor's not there, and I'm thinking, it's Doctor Who, you prat. I honestly, this is just stupid. I want to be showrunner for Doctor Who. I think I'll be a really good showrunner for Doctor Who. And I've got loads of ideas when the Doctor's not there. Well, pay off then. I really don't want to tolerate this now. If they don't find it exciting to have a Doctor character back, then don't bloody well do it. We've just had RTD, who's bored with Doctor Who and faffs with Doctor Who. And so I don't want a successor to hint at it. Now, obviously, that's just one bit of quotation, but I've got more, as you can guess, coming. Doug, am I getting triggered?
You're getting very triggered. You're starting to trigger me, and I was all pro him a minute ago. Now I think he's a bastard.
Well, you were sat
We're all
on the
about the
fence,
detox.
so you're interested because when you were texting me about us doing this show, you said you were roughly on the fence on Pete Mctighe. So
Yeah, I am.
yeah. But you know, Doctor Who needs to have the Doctor in it. Doctor Who, I don't give a stuff what Kate Stewart's doing for tea. I don't give a stuff whether in Lucky Day Ruby's got PTSD. I couldn't give a stuff.
Look, I actually liked Lucky Day right up until it sort of the last 10 minutes where I think it actually was its weakest. In terms of the Kate Stewart resolve, Kate to me is I'm not interested in the Kate's unit. It's just not. To me, it's not compelling. It just doesn't.
It's not unit. It's not unit.
But also she's like it. I mean, she suffered enormously under the Chibnall era as well. I mean, it's just yeah. The only reason that Kate's there is because she's related to the Brig, and she's just not the Brig.
And the trouble with her character being in charge of unit is that the dynamic in unit was the military side with the brigadier, the doctor, the scientific side, and they've got to combine both of those characters into one and tried to make it one character and still have the doctor as well as a side character, which doesn't work at all. You can't have that scientific advisor in role in charge of unit. It's got to be the military. That's how the dynamic always worked in the past. Also, I think Gemma Redgrave is very badly cast in the role, always has been. I found her much more interesting when Ingrid Oliver was around as Osgood.
Yes.
Yes,
I like
yes.
that dynamic a lot better. Um, but Gemma on her own, nah, doesn't really do anything for me. There was in some of the fan made productions or semi-official productions before the TV series came back. Kate Stewart was played by an actress called I think it's Beverly Cressman, and she was great in some of the stories, like Deimos Rising was a good one, and I think was that the main one she was in? Deimos Rising? That's one I was watching recently, so I remember her from that. And I thought, man, I like this version of Kate much better than anything official that I've ever got. So, yeah, I think the
Mm.
casting has a lot to do with why I don't appreciate Unit 2
Well, well, isn't this the other
anymore.
thing? I mean, Dan, I mean, you started this about units. I mean, they're not recognizable unit. It's not military even. I mean, there's the military bit's been put to the side. I suppose they don't want to show you toxic masculinity because they've all got so many agendas that they need to show you the cleaning lady's a special one and all that crap.
No, well, there was again another juxtaposition with the first RTD run in 2005 when they brought Unit back. Unit was closer to Unit back then than it is today.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you had military people alongside of scientific advisors and things. And the point was that you got the different political perspectives in those characters, and having Kate trying to be progressive and then next minute she's trying to be a hard ass, and she just doesn't pull it off. It's not
No,
compelling viewing, and
not in the slightest.
no, it hasn't worked. And and just because Daddy was Brigadier doesn't make it, even as a fan, it just it's like get the nepo baby out of there.
But back in the early days of Unit, even when there were women in charge, they were
Yeah,
good military figures. They
Yeah, they
weren't,
yeah.
were.
trying to play both sides of the field. They were military, like Unit is supposed to be.
Yeah, the one in
But
Battlefield.
this is what all these modern writers have done to Star Trek and things like that as well. They've pulled the chain of command out of these franchises, and basically, because they want everyone to be touchy feely and emotional, which is that's not what you want in your military.
Well, and
No.
this is the very thing. And so, my main question tonight is about whether Doctor Who's safe in Pete Mctighe'S hands. He's going to reference later, and I'll show you it, where he talks about this is a great journey for Kate's character to go on the war between the land and the sea. She will be pushed and challenged, and it's like, I really, give us some great sci-fi drama. That's all I want. So, yeah, I am worried if I'm going to interview him, I'm worried about what he's saying here. I'll go further. I'll go bigger again. So regarding the war between the land and the sea, he says it was Russell's idea. So, right, do we make Pete McTighe the showrunner when basically he's just saying he's doing Russell's bidding? Hello. Russell's phone timed me and said, I really want to do an episode where we focus on the companion and what happens after the Doctor. And I've always loved that idea. That's what I play with a lot during those Blu-ray collection box set trailers, is I play with the idea of getting old companions back and finding out what's happened to them and stuff. I'll say straight away, is that just fan service though? We've loved them, we're fans. I love those Blu-ray collection little bits and bobs, but I have to say I don't want them in the main series. God, I'm sounding really painful about that. But this one, for example, Dwayne, I loved it. The final battle when you saw Louise Jameson, who's going to be at your Sirens of Audio in March. But, you know, you do the touch of the time raw. You do a little bit of, she's stood at the end there. She's called Commander, a bit of cheap effects, but it's great to see Louise. And then, here we go. Bit of this. Wayfinder My Lady. Then you get to see her front it out with the Daleks and then blast them to smithereens and disappear into the TARDIS. And we all feel good inside, and so therefore we make Pete McTighe the showrunner, do we?
This is perfect for what it was designed for, which was as a trailer for the Blu-rays, like season 15, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the trailer for that one. So, you know, for what it is, it's perfect. It's not part of the TV show, of course. It's just referencing, and it is fan service. That's what you want. It's fans who are buying these things, so you want them to part with your dollars. So you want to give them great, and he did a great job on those. So yeah, I
Does
can't
it
say
give
anything
you?
bad about those. But that does not make someone who can do something like that necessarily the right person to run the whole program.
Because I think my question is to all of you lads, and I'll come to you first, Dwayne, since you've just been talking. Is okay, yeah, he does what he's asked to do for the Blu-ray collections. Yeah, that's spot on what he does there. He did the one with the Sea Devils as well, and you know the two girls in the cave and Katie Manning and all that stuff. Ace, and he did the one with Perry. So he does all that. He knows his stuff regarding. Oh yes, she's married to Kenya Carnos. No, 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 no. But am I seeing anything new? Am I seeing potential for great new concepts? Am I seeing a new Christopher H. Bidmead, a new Andrew Cartmel here? Or am I just seeing somebody who's going to be like a continuation of the New Who brand itself? What do you think, Dwayne? Are we seeing anything?
Not through those. No, he's just doing the job that he's been asked to do. One other thing that he did was he was also in charge on the recent Blu-rays for the omnibus edits of some of the classic serials like the Silurians, Inferno. Did he do Sea Devils as well? I'm not sure, but many of those have omnibus cut down versions, which are really good. And particularly the Silurians, I really enjoyed that. I didn't feel like it was cut down at all, but it was cut down to about 90 minutes for the Blu-ray, and he did it really well. Like we've seen what other editors. Shall I name them? No, we know who I'm talking about. Who can't cut things down to save themselves, but he did a good job on the other ones. So he does have an eye for certain things better than other people that I've seen.
Yeah, what are you thinking, Doug? Are you going to give him the job yet on anything I've mentioned?
It's a tough one. He's definitely got writing chops, but I don't think we've seen him as a leader. As you've already said, he defers to other people like RTD. So will he make a decision on his own, or is he going to secretly get the advice of other people? I don't know. As I said, I'm not against him. I mean, what's the saying? If you can't be with the one you love, love the one you. So if he was the choice presented to us, I'd certainly give it a go. I'm fairly easy to please that if they can, assuming the show continues, if they can cast a good actor to play the Doctor, I'm going along for the ride. But he's pretty untested, so I guess time will tell.
Yeah, Dan?
I actually think that look, a lot of stories, very few stories are genuinely from scratch, fresh, brand new ideas. Everything is kind of got elements of other things in it. And I think in Doctor Who, I don't really see that as a problem because even the best Doctor Who writers pinch and borrow from different things over the years. And some of Pete Mctighe'S stuff, you can definitely spot stuff that's been, let's say, I won't say pinched, but definitely homaged from
Homage.
homage from other stories, but also other classics, literary classics that are outside of Doctor Who, things like Hitchcock and stuff like that. But and there's nothing wrong with that per se.
I mean, there is an argument, isn't there? And I've heard it a few times that, like Philip Hinchcliffe, once he'd inherited the show and got over season 12, you then got Zygons, Crinoids. That next series was new aliens, new villains, and he moved forward. And he was only 29 years old at that point. Season 19, I'll just throw in there straight away. You did have the Master. To do that connection because of the regeneration, and at the end of the season you had the Obankans, the Pteroleptals, the Mara. Yes, you had the Cybermen, but season 19 showed more push to go forward with some safety net because you had a brand new young Doctor. Philip Hinchcliffe's era shows an awful lot of pioneering spirit, moving Doctor Who forward, not just doing the tried and tested formula. My concern about new Who writers, especially those on the inside with RTD, is they all love to pour over Doctor Who, the old stuff, and twist it and make it. And you think, leave it alone and now and again have a revisitation, but go forward. If you really want to do Doctor Who, where's your new stuff? Where's your new ideas? And I think that's my concern.
Secrets to unlock. Clever, clever boy.
Look, yeah, it's really hard to separate Pete, given he's, unfortunately, he's kind of come to pass it during the Chibnall era and the and this RTD2 era, and I think that I'd like to think that he might have some things up his sleeve that he's saving for a rainy day when, if he ever does get a showrunner job. I think there are definitely some seeds there, but I do worry that what we're seeing in the broader Doctor Who community from the BBC is they're absolutely doubling, tripling down on the messaging, and I feel that Pete's probably aligned in that area and probably sympathetic towards it, and probably if push came to shove, he'd toe the line on it, and I think that would be that will be the detriment to the show, is if they don't get if the message doesn't take a back seat in the next era. They need to get a good doctor in there, and they need to get the message out of the show so that people could just focus on escapism.
Well, you're saying message. Later in our show today, I'll mention messaging, because we'll be talking about the war between the land and the sea and anything he says. And you think, okay, Dwayne, sorry, I can see you jumping in there.
Sorry.
It's all right.
One thing he did say at his interview with us, someone asked, because he did a Q&A, so that was really good of him. But someone did ask him about representation in his stories, because the person in the audience was really pleased it was in there. And he did make the comment that because he is part of, a certain community, he likes to put representation in everything that he does. So, and it's just because that's the world that he lives in. So instantly when he said those things, I was thinking, I've heard this somewhere before. And yeah, exactly what RTD has said before. So I suspect that, based on the little bits and pieces that I've heard, that it would potentially be, RTD 2, which would be a little bit disappointing, unfortunately.
Okay, then. Well, I'll try and give him a chance, because he says here in the Whoniverse show, Doctor Who taught me to read, really, like my grandmother bought me an old Target paperback of Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen. That was the first kind of adult book that I ever... He does do kind of a lot. I've tried to take a lot out and learned to read that. And my first memories of television are Daleks bursting through a wall opposite Tom Baker in '79 when I was tiny. So my whole life, I've just been a massive fan. And so to be doing this now feels insane, but also correct in some way. So basically, does it make you feel better that he's a fan and then it helped him? I always say that. Help me to read.
But based on that criteria, though, probably all of us could be showrunner then, because we've all got probably Target books over on the shelf here that I've had since I was a kid. But I tell you what, I could do a better Sutex story than what RTD did. That was crap.
Yeah, I happen to have in my hand a pillar. Sorry, lads. I have a pillar in my hand. Sorry, I know that sounds dodgy. I hope everybody's got visuals and they're not listening. And the ruin. So there you go. I can now show run for Doctor Who. There you go. You're right, Dan. It could be any of us. That's my point.
No, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to be a Doctor Who fan, and I think if only they could just tap into that feeling that we had as kids. That's what you want to give to another kid. You don't want to just go, oh, wow, I'm a fan, so I get to do what I want with it. You want to create the same thing that you had there for someone else, for a new generation. And, that's so basically what I'm saying is, no, I don't think it's a bad thing to be a fan of the show if you're the showrunner.
But when was
necessarily.
I take your point, but when was the last time
It's
you
not
were
a bad
by Doctor Who, written by all these fans?
Say again?
When did Doctor Who last grab you? Since it's been written by all these fans who are dying to give us what they had when... You see, RTD goes on about, the Tomb of the Cybermen, that was my formative years, and you're thinking, oh, God, do an update of the Tomb of the Cybermen and you've won me. But he doesn't do that, he does Devil's Card.
Mate, wait till they colorise it.
Yeah.
See, I got all those kind of feels with World Enough in Time, with Capaldi's penultimate story. Yeah. Particularly the first part. Those were that was the kind of creepy Doctor Who that was totally scary and back the way that it was. However, unfortunately, the second half got a bit convoluted and a bit confusing and hard to understand. I still don't quite understand what went on in that.
No, me neither.
But, so if a showrunner was a fan, like Moffat was, to be able to tap into the first episode of World Enough in Time, just keep that going throughout the whole story, and resolve it satisfactorily, and move on to the next one. That would be a good way to go.
So there you go. I've mentioned that he read with his gran, so give him the job. But I think it gets worse, right?
You're being cynical, Brendan.
I am being cynical. But after 20 years of New Who, I think I've been well educated. I know. So here we go. He talks about he knew what was going to happen to Mrs. Flood turned into the Rani. Now, the reason I'm showing you this, lads, is because if he's a potential good showrunner, when does he actually ask questions? Like Terence Dicks and Barry Letts would debate, and Robert Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe would debate and question each other and then produce a new script. Is there any pushback? Is there a sign that one fan talking to another fan, both with writing skills, say, really? Now look what he says here. I knew everything. The first conversation I had with Russell about Lucky Day, he was like, let me tell you about the season. And I just kind of sat there with my mouth wide open as he told me everything. Yes, she's the Rani. So my head was kind of spinning. And then I went away and forgot about it. So one moment we were shooting the Trinity Wells scenes from Lucky Day, and Russell was in the studio that day. I was on set for every day of Lucky Day. He came in and wanted to go and meet Trinity and say hi. So we were sitting watching them set up for Trinity Wells. And he said, do you want to know about the finale? Because I've just figured it out. And I'm going to do it in a 2-part finale. And do you want me to tell you the story? I was, yeah. So we sat there watching them film Trinity Wells, and Russell is telling me a new Doctor Who story. He's telling me all about the Rani and the Reality War and Omega. And I was just kind of sitting there going, wow, that was a really special moment. I mean, when do you go, why have you got Omega, the Rani, and everybody in a 50-minute special? Wow, you are either amazing, RTD. How the hell are you going to do that? I mean, instead, he sounded like a fanboy going, oh, you're amazing.
Just the way you sat back and folded your arms, Brendan.
I know. I'm slightly animated today. I've woken up now.
Good.
But you see my point. I'm not. You're allowed to have passion and you're allowed to be amazed by stuff. You are a fan after all. But I would expect something else from a potential showrunner that he sometimes says. I did ask Russell, how the hell are you going to fit all that in?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, if you had RTD sitting there telling you, like, even Empire, if you go back to season 1 with Empire of Death, like, I was actually hooked into that for the first half. It was the payoff. He just had, each time he sets things up, he just can't pay it off in this era. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's so frustrating because there are so many things about having the ingredients there for things like Empire of Death that could have been excellent. I mean, they had Gabriel Wolf back and everything, and then but the story just was inane. It just wasn't there, and with Lucky Day and things like there were the good elements there, but it didn't land, and it doesn't pay off. And even the Rani and Omega, like all those things, you'd be like, if RTD was sitting across the table from you and telling you that back before 2023, you probably would be going, "Wow, that sounds awesome." And then the execution fails, and you just go. Now, if he tells you something, you'd just be like, "Sorry, mate, I'm out." Like there is nothing that
really though. With all we know about RTD, his personality, how he works, how he's of the belief that no one would dare say no to him. He would obviously project that to everyone that he works with as well. You know, if you were a writer wanting to keep your job, would you sit there and go, "No, mate, that's a crap idea"?
Exactly. Yeah. No one would do that.
But there's the art of the question. I mean, I assume RTD's had a question asked of him at some point. Otherwise, I'm disgusted because they mention executive producer Joel Collins, executive producer Phil Collinson, executive producer. Oh, they're all big in their own bloody titles up. But you know what the hell do you do as executive producer? Sit twiddling with your bloody pens. You know, do you actually ask a bloody question about a bloody big budget? What do you do? I mean, I'm not saying you slag him off, but you just say, "Gosh, how are you going to do that?" Instead, you went, "Wow."
Well, Saint Russell's star was shining very brightly right up until December 2023. And, I mean, let's face it, he crash landed that ship in record time.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, what, 18 months? I mean, less than 12 months to the public.
Well, let me just keep the triggering going. Well, I said keep the triggering. It's all evidence, isn't it? Look at that. Look at the first line. Genius Russell T Davies. It's his idea, says Pete McTighe. Genius. Now, I'm sorry. You've all had different jobs in your careers, lads. I have never said to my boss anything up there like, you know, "Can I have your babies?" I mean, honestly, this is ridiculous. I mean, genius RTD. It's his idea. He created the show. I had just delivered my first draft of Lucky Day, I had a message which said, "We love the script. We're sending you something else. Can you have a look at it? And then can we get on the call and have a chat about it?" I'd heard whispers there was a spin-off happening. And sure enough, that's what landed in my inbox episode, The War Between. Genius. Honestly, can these people be grown up and talk to each other? Hold on. I'm going to just ask a question of amazingly, you're a genius, multi-talented Doug. I mean, can I just say Doug, or do I have to big you up?
No, you definitely have to big me up. I'm a bit concerned though, Brendan. I thought we were asked back to be on a new version of the Detox. I'm feeling very triggered and toxified here. When's the Detox coming?
This is the late night Detox when it actually
Okay.
But you can see where I'm coming from. I line up the show. I mean, the evidence shocked me. I know Dan sent me the Universe show clip and said he checked out after about 2 minutes, and then I watched it, and then I thought, what the hell? There's some of the stuff being said here. If these are anywhere near the new show.
My question is why? What evidence do we have that he is going to be showrunner, or are we just thinking because he seems to be the next one in line? Is that why we're thinking this now?
Well, I'm only going on the track record of 20 years of BBC management, which is, oh gosh, RTD's leaving. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, Stephen. Oh, yeah. You're right next to him. Right. Back. Get him in. Stephen Moffat. Oh, you're leaving. Oh, Chris Chibnall's my friend. Right. Get him in. Chris, you know how this is going. And by the say, if you think I'm being a little bit kind of, I'll find you the clip. He actually mentions, you know, there's no interview. There's no pitch. My source has to make pitches to the BBC and ITV, and yet he's a media producer established. He has to make a pitch. Where's Pete Mctighe'S pitch? Where's Stephen Moffat's pitch? They're not making pitches. They're going, it's your turn, you know. Oh, you did a lovely job with the spin-off. Oh, you did a lovely job with the Blu-ray collections. And we can't think of anybody else. It's yours. That's why I'm being highly cynical, but on point, Drain.
Deep breath, Brendan. Deep breath.
This is,
and I'm not. I'm just talking about you, not the episode.
Yeah, what we'll do is
between Stephen Moffat and Pete Mctighe. Stephen Moffat had a track record of massive successes outside of Doctor Who prior to that. Plus, he had some massive successes in Doctor Who. The RTD era's best remembered and highly regarded episodes were written by Stephen Moffat. They still are to this day.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that. He certainly had his critics, and he certainly, during his time, did some interesting things with the show, and maybe got a bit distracted with other things like Sherlock during the time as well. But he was certainly highly successful as the showrunner. Chris Chibnall, maybe not so much, and he certainly didn't have the stories that Moffat had within Doctor Who, but he had a massive success with Broadchurch. So I think maybe the BBC was counting on that too. And so those guys did have massive successes. I'm not sure so much about Pete Mctighe, whether he has anything like that. No one's pointed anything out to me that's been a huge hit like those two previous showrunners.
Yeah, I mean, my bottom line is, when I've talked to the source now, he's ill at the moment, and hopefully he gets better. But normally it's on a regular basis, and the one thing that comes through again and again and again is it's very hard to get through to the BBC or ITV or Channel 4. It's very hard to get in the room. Now, the people in the room seem to be just the established echo chamber. Now, my concern is I just want Doctor Who to move forward. That's all. Fresh ideas, a new angle, a new outlook. And it just sounds as though we're in a bit of a death loop at the moment, where it's just, so I'm just concerned that he's in the right place at the right time. And this is the other thing the source has said, which is, he said, in the end, Bad Wolf probably will do series 3. He said, because who else has got studios of that size?
True.
And in the end, he said it's just logistics. He said the BBC might want to move on. They may not be happy with how Bad Wolf has done this. But who else in Britain can do a sci-fi show of this size? And he said you need the studio space, and you need the wherewithal. And some of the quotes I'll show you as we get onto the war between the land and the sea. The Bad Wolf have now got in-house SFX and everything, and AI with the Sea Devils. In other words, it's its own bloody little kind of world now. So how can you ignore them? So in the end, there you go. And the last thing, sorry lads, is the source said to me about the new showrunner. He said they're going to pick somebody they can work with.
Okay.
So I'll just say that again. Somebody they can work with, and somebody they like working with. That's how.
Yes, man.
Yeah. That's so sorry. So I'm not just being cynical and triggered, which I am. And this. I'm going to rewrite and say this show is not called Detox. It's called Take a Deep Breath, Brendan. I know, I won't call it Deep Breath. Somebody might think they're tuning into the
Well, it's good clickbait, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an idea there. Actually, lads, we're going late night.
I'm sorry. But it's a lie.
But I agree with you. He is the most logical choice if Bad Wolf continues over the next couple of years, because of contracts, of money. They probably are the best positioned company to do Doctor Who on a shoestring, like you say, because they have got kind of the capacity developed and ready talent ready to go. And it would make sense that he would be the most likely candidate. The other day, I think one of your streams, you guys were talking about the Moffat era, and people say that it was in decline, and look, it's fair to say I agree with Dwayne. It was a distraction. It wasn't the Moffat era never crapped the bed the way the Chibnall era and the RTD2 era went. You can rewatch right up until Twice Upon a Time, and it's still Doctor Who at that point. It's nowhere in the near the ballpark of a disaster, and it's no different to the the original show. Doctor Who reinvented itself numerous times through the classic era, and it definitely had ups and downs, but it was still Doctor Who quintessentially all the way through. I think it's fair to say that recent years, the show's definitely out of balance, and it needs balance restored. And if the other Bad Wolf and BBC productions that we're seeing that are carrying on as of this week around Doctor Who, no, they haven't learned the lessons of why they failed in the last couple of years. They don't get it, and they're going to double and triple down. And I think Pete McTighe will toe the line, and it's not going to push the show into a healthy zone if that's the case. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with War Between the Land and the Sea, because there are aspects of it that I think sounds really good, and I'm sitting there thinking, even this is not new. I mean, this is 1970s Doctor Who all over in terms of the premise. Now, whether or not they execute it, that remains to be seen over the next few weeks. Yeah. But the reality is they're standing on the shoulders of giants. Let's see if they can, kick a goal.
I think that last phrase of yours is very apt, which is that's what they've been doing with Sutek, Pyramids of Mars. You could go on. 3 Doctors. They've been sitting on the shoulders of giants, but not doing not trying to become giants themselves. Just to give you a bit more evidence, it's always nice to revisit, he said, like when I started doing those collection box set trailers, bringing back Sophie Aldred back as Ace. So to do that was brilliant, and then to bring back Leela and all the rest of it, and Tegan. So basically, he seems to be very interested in the non-Doctor Who bit, if you get my gist. I think the Doctor needs to be re-established, and myself, I think. Now, my last bit of evidence, lads, regarding my big, question about whether you'd feel safe with him being the new showrunner if that comes to pass, is what he says about Lucky Day, and that scene that I think we've already referenced today, those last 10 minutes, I think you said, Dan, those last 10 minutes of Lucky Day that you did not like, he thinks are the best Doctor Who he's ever written. So, so here we go.
Okay.
So, yeah, this I found very contentious. You've seen in my reviews, we've all discussed this, but let's just remind us of what he said. I mean, Shooty gives a terrifying performance, you can say that again, towards Jonah, who equally came back because you've got 2 big dogs in the room. Tell me how that went. The Doctor has been severe ever since William Hartnell nearly caved somebody's head in with a rock back in '64. So Tom Baker was punching people like the Doctor is always pushed to their limits. And I think it's important because otherwise the character becomes stagnant. And there's that old kind of quote of Terence Dix's that the Doctor's never cruel or cowardly. And that's fine, and that's true. But you have to bump the Doctor up against that mantra sometimes to test him and to see what happens. And this was one of those times. And yes, he is cruel to Conrad in that moment because Conrad has done so much. Conrad has basically undermined the whole of UNIT. He's done terrible things to Ruby and to Kate, to loads of people. He's nearly caused somebody's death. Do you know, Sutek, brings death to the whole cosmos. He's up there with Sutek. He nearly killed somebody, I think, when they crossed the road. This is my point. The Doctor was so triggered, almost as triggered as me. And yet Conrad hadn't done anything. Now, the thing he had done, Dwayne, is he'd been nasty to a woman, toxic masculinity. He'd been nasty. He'd said nasty things about Kate's dad. But he hadn't killed anyone. And yet the Doctor decided to go absolutely feral on him. And he thinks this is one of the best bits of Doctor Who he's ever written, Dwayne.
To compare Shudy's performance to William Hartnell and Tom Baker, I think, is quite insulting. For anyone who's actually seen those performances, how can you even say that? I did see that scene, and it was a terrible watch for me. I haven't watched the season in full, and it's just paralyzingly painful to watch any of it for me. And comparing it to those classic Doctors, who I respect so much, is just wrong.
But didn't you like the orange glow? Because didn't it remind you of Enlightenment? Because he does mention that too. So there's a touch for you. There's an Easter egg for you.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't care about that.
I'm sorry, that part of the episode felt like a misedit. It felt like it was retroactively edited into the show. It did not gel with the rest of the story properly.
It was very jarring, wasn't it?
You could argue that it wasn't editing; it was actually the writing, and this would then be on Pete McTighe's shoulders. That the whole Conrad bit just didn't make sense. His motivations didn't gel. His values didn't gel. Even the concepts of what's right and wrong in Lucky Day sort of fall apart by the end of the show, and you're going, it. I think you're supposed to think that Conrad's wrong, but in many ways, you could argue that he's right if you believe that his motivations are genuine. But it's a bit of a confusing mess by the end, because you're not sure whether or not Conrad really believes that Unit's doing something wrong, or the Doctor's doing something, or that he thinks the Doctor's doing something wrong, or he's just being a complete tool. It's not entirely clear if at the time I was like, is this going to play out by the season finale? And by the end of the finale, you think Conrad's not as bad as they make him out to be, and they kind of give him that reprieve at the end by the end of the season. But at the same time, it's that is probably the rockiest part of the writing. It's poor characterization. It's not consistent.
Well, I'll just remind you for a second, lads, and just get your reaction, because my judgment at the time was basically, if you are trying to say this is the great moment when, I've just watched Brain of Morbius Part 4, and we all love the moment when he calls him the chop suey, and they throw insults at him to get his brain befuddled and get him triggered, because basically his wiring's going to go dodgy in the Brain of Morbius. There was a whole plan and everything, and we loved him doing that. And there's a moment when Tom Baker gets so serious with Morbius, who says, I'm a Time Lord of the highest rank, and he goes, I doubt it. And there's power, and there's authority, and there's command. So I think this is what our potential showrunner thinks happened here. But what I saw myself, lads, is you got this dialogue saying, you are not special, or you're special for all the wrong reasons. He says, I'm fighting a battle on behalf of the common people. And then he says, who just want to get through their day and feel safe, warm and fed. And then along comes noise. Your relentless noise. Cowards like you weaponizing lies, taking people's insecurity and fear, making it currency. You are exhausting. You choke our bandwidth and shred our patience, because the only strategy you have is to wear us down. But the thing is, Conrad, I have energy to burn and all the time in the universe. And then I like, if this is clever writing, I liked his lines, because Conrad just says, am I bothered? He just says an intervention, and he's the cool dude. And then he gets nasty. The Doctor, you die in a prison cell. You boil in anger and poison. You die at 49. This is just meddling on a horrific scale. So I think if it was meant to show the great moment when the Doctor wins and the Doctor humiliates or mocks this chief villain, I was actually cheering on the villain. And I thought the villain came out of it better. And I thought the only one who looked like a toxic masculine person was the Doctor, whereas the other one kept his cool. If our potential showrunner thinks this is great writing, It was a misdirect. It went wrong. So, I've got loads of arguments about that, lads.
Guy in a prison cell.
Relentless noise. Cowards like you.
What do you think, Dwayne? Am I, again, shooting too high?
The lines in that scene about early on, what were the lines again? I can't remember what they were now. They were very generic. They weren't specific about anything. All this relentless noise the Doctor's going. It's so obviously attacking certain people in the world.
Those lines were really to the audience, not to particular people in the audience. It wasn't really Conrad.
It wasn't to the character. Yeah,
No.
It wasn't worked into the story, and that's the whole point with the way writing is these days, not just in Doctor Who, but in everything else, or not everything else, many other things too, is that these concepts cannot be written into the story in a clever way like they were back in the Dix and Letts era, the opposing political ideas. It's just, you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you you're wrong. It doesn't even go into specifics about. It just sort of says noise,
Do you know-
and lies. You're weaponizing lies. What lies? How do you know they're lies?
Yeah.
It's just so political. It's not funny, and
It's-
blatant politicizing as well. Not
No.
weaved into the show.
Well,
No,
just
very
like-
tacked on.
Well, just so that you can see, there's a final thing I want to show you that links with that. So don't worry, lads. I will get your reaction totally. He says there's a lot, and so this just might just seal the deal for you. Pete Mctighe says about that scene that I've just shown you, there's a lot to be angry about. As a writer in that moment, you're inhabiting those characters. I was inhabiting the Doctor, and I was really angry about Conrad. Because remember, he was nasty to two women. Remember, that was really nasty. And someone needed to say that stuff to him because he was a nasty, toxic man. And it was a joy to shoot because just having those two actors opposite each other was fantastic. And just then, the moment where Conrad's just like, whatever, it's great. And then the click of the Doctor's fingers. I loved all that. I'm really proud of that scene. I think it's one of my favourite things ever, right? Potential showrunner. I like it as well because it's a lot of what I want to say to people on various social media platforms all the time.
There you go.
I mean, yeah. Right. So I'll just finish this off, and then I think people might be triggered because I certainly am. Click your fingers and let them be gone. I wanted the lighting to be like enlightenment, blah blah blah. And then he finally says, remember, this is potential showrunner. I wanted it to feel a bit more intimate and moody. Then for the Doctor to be that amazing in that white, almost angelic costume against that just looks so cool. Oh my God. So having that, no, do you know what?
Calm down.
So go on, Doug, your turn.
I don't know where to start. I do remember us talking about this episode when we were reviewing them, and it does feel very preachy, very tacked on. And I, for one, don't mind messaging an agenda. And as Dwayne says, as long as it's done well and it's well written and it's part of the plot, they can preach all they like. Just don't hit me over the head with a hammer. I also think maybe, just maybe, if there was a better actor performing the scene, there might have been a bit more nuance to it. Maybe it wouldn't have been as bad. But it definitely felt like a tacked-on scene, and it shouldn't have been in the episode. It was all wrong.
It's just, I mean, I don't know if any of you did fully watch the Whoniverse show in the end.
No.
But they did attack fans. They had digs at various points. So it's fascinating that on the Whoniverse show, they attack, I assume, critics, fans who have got a critical eye, a well-informed eye, and not just like the superficial gloss. I mean, what I'm supposed to say is, forget the plot holes and everything. I'm supposed to go, I'm gay, and he looked gorgeous in that costume. That's what I'm supposed to do, apparently. Instead
You did that so well.
I know, so many years.
Anyone would think you were gay, Brendan. That was brilliant.
So, do you know what
Can
I
I
mean?
just make a point on that just briefly? Wouldn't it be more interesting as a writer to make both sides of that argument a little bit more ambiguous in the
Yes,
story, so that you may come
absolutely.
away thinking, well, he's the villain, but what about this? And this guy's the hero, but maybe he's doing the wrong thing too. Like a classic example would be the case of Androzani. Look what
Yes.
Look what Robert Holmes did there with Sharaz Jack. So you've got Sharaz Jack, who is the classic villain of the
Yeah.
piece, but he has a reason behind him being a villain.
Correct.
And it gets you thinking about that. And there's more nuance in him just being a villain who is there in a black and white mask, someone to hate.
Absolutely.
And even the doctor felt sorry for him, and you could see that the doctor knew he was mad, but felt sorry for him at the same time. There's all this subtlety and nuance in the characters, not just a black and white villain on this side, good guy on that
Correct.
side. The good guy
Yeah.
can do and say whatever he likes because he's a villain, and you can
Yeah.
treat villains however you want. No, that's not life, and that's what we get, or what we seem to be getting from those lines that were reading out there. It's not black and white, and that's not how Doctor Who should be. Should
And
be
just
like
No.
Caves of Androzani.
and just to punctuate what you're saying there, and just it is, yeah, no, it's not Malcolm Hulk. And since we've got the Sea Devils coming up, written by Malcolm Hulk, I worry about it because Malcolm Hulk's Sea Devils give you sides. I mean, it is fascinating to introduce a monster who actually you start to feel sympathy for, very like the Silurians and the cave monsters and all the rest of it. Whereas when you see the trailer for the War Between the Land and the Sea, I feel as though the humans are the baddies, and you think, where's the
Yeah.
nuance gone?